Today we are in Paje heading to Stonetown. Let's go!
We're in Stonetown.
Off to explore Stonetown. Hey guys, so we are here in Stonetown, and as you can see, it's beautiful narrow alleyways. So we're just gonna go for a walk and check some stuff out and see what we can see.
Jumbo, welcome.
Jumbo, thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Kumara. How are you?
Hello. So Stonetown was named from the stones that were used by the nearby coral reef to build it. Over the years, these stones have deteriorated, and you'll notice that a lot of the buildings in Stonetown are actually leaning at an odd angle. So as you walk through the town, you'll notice that they've been propped up with these large wooden pylons in order to try to help keep them structurally sound. The other thing that Stonetown was built on and is famous for was the slave trade.
Stonetown was the center of the slave trade in East Africa. It was also the location of the last open slave market, which closed in 1873. So we feel that it's very important as you're traveling to not only enjoy your time at the beach and all the beautiful places that there are in the area, but also to get in touch with a bit of the history of Zanzibar. While you're in the area, make sure to stop at the Anglican Church, which is the location of the slavery memorial. At this exhibit, you're able to visit the slave chambers.
The slaves were taken from inland East Africa. They were usually bought inland in order to carry ivory out of East Africa. So the ivory trade and the slave trade were kind of very intertwined. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the times they would purchase more than one slave for the ivory, for each piece of ivory that they needed to carry, because they realized that the conditions were so poor that at least 50% of the slaves would die by the time they actually reached the coast. Once they got to the coast, their misery really wasn't over. From there, they were put into dhows, which are these large wooden boats, and shipped off to Zanzibar in very poor conditions. They were stuffed into the holds without any room to stand, no place to defecate or urinate, so they were basically dying left, right, and center from disease and dysentery. In order to bring them to slave market, the slave traders had to pay $1 a head tax in order to bring the slaves ashore. So if the slaves were, for whatever reason, in good enough health, they would just either leave them on board to starve to death or kick them over into the water to drown.
Once they made it to Zanzibar, I mean, their troubles were not over. So they were held in slave chambers where they had little to no space to breathe. Those slave chambers, as you can see, were very tight spaces, barely any airflow in that space. They were crammed, sometimes 75 to 50 in those little chambers in the chambers that you see in the video. And they would be chained, they would be naked, there would be kids, there would be women and men all together in that space. No toilets available, so they would defecate basically in the middle of the chamber.
Hi everyone, so I just
just visited the slave chambers, and you cannot describe the feeling going in there. It is so enclosed, you can barely breathe. There's no air circulation, as you can see. And seeing those chains really did something to me. This is real. This really happened. Slavery was a real thing, you know. It's just really crazy. So one thing that struck me as I walked through the exhibit and read a bit of the history was the story of this lady who was held as, captured as a slave, and went through a process where she showed her masters that she was not a slave and ended up being freed.
She petitioned the court.
She petitioned the court. And they ended up, did they reimburse her or gave her some kind of money?
Yep.
So they gave her money. And when asked what she would do with the money she got, she mentioned that she would buy a slave, or many slaves.
Yeah.
Right. So it's quite interesting to see what the context of it was back then. Local people were aspiring to become slave owners. It wasn't just the Arabs or Omanis that moved to Zanzibar and that had plantations, but local Bantu people that were of a certain standing were also aspiring to be slave owners, and some cases were slave owners. So getting to see that aspect of it was very shocking to me, but also gave me a glimpse into what that world and what the context was at the time. Yeah.
It really was this very ingrained idea in society that you could own a person, and the fact that even a slave could have a slave, to me, is just mind-boggling. Traveling isn't just about seeing the beautiful parts of a country. It's not just about experiencing the serene beaches, the elegant historical sites, or the tasty local cuisine. If you really want to try to understand the world and the forces that shape it, you also have to expose yourself to the ugliness, the injustices, and the unattractive parts of a country. Otherwise, you are doing yourself and that country an injustice.